I had just come home from a long day at work, feeling the familiar weight on my shoulders when I heard her voice. It wasn't unusual for Jennifer to be in the kitchen, but tonight, something was different. There was an air of tension, a quiet unease that I couldn't shake. I noticed her hurried movements as she poured herself a glass of wine, her back turned to me. "Hey, honey, how was your day?" I asked, setting my keys down. She didn't answer immediately. The silence that followed felt thick, almost suffocating. "Fine," she muttered, avoiding eye contact. It wasn't like her. Jennifer was always the one to engage in conversation, to ask how my day went, to smile and make everything feel like it was okay, even when it wasn't. But tonight, she was different. I watched her pour another glass of wine. She'd been drinking more lately. At first, I thought it was just stress. But then I began to notice little things, her phone always face down, late-night girls' nights that seemed to last longer than usual, her constant excuses about why she couldn't spend time with me. It was all so subtle at first, but now, as I stood in the doorway, I could feel the weight of something much worse hanging in the air. I could feel my pulse quicken, but I brushed it off. "How was the gym?" I asked, trying to sound casual. But I had already begun to notice the inconsistencies. She used to tell me everything about her workouts, what she ate, who she ran into. Now, she barely spoke a word. She gave me a half-hearted smile and shrugged, her eyes darting away from mine. "Busy. You know." She was lying, I could tell, but I couldn't put my finger on it just yet. Then came the text. I had left my phone in the living room, and when I walked back in, I saw her phone lighting up with a message. Normally, I wouldn't snoop, but tonight something gnawed at me, something I couldn't ignore. I grabbed her phone. She was on the couch, pretending to watch TV, but I saw the look in her eyes, a mix of panic and guilt, like she was expecting me to catch something. Her phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. It was from an unknown number. "Can't wait to see you again tonight. You were amazing last time." I froze. My heart started to beat in my throat. It couldn't be. But I knew, deep down, it was exactly what I feared. The betrayal. It had been creeping into my life for months now, and I had finally found the undeniable proof. Her secret lover, the one she'd been hiding from me for who knows how long. She didn't say anything at first when she saw me staring at her phone. The silence between us was suffocating. And then she slowly set her glass down, turning towards me. Her face twisted into something I couldn't quite understand: shame, anger, or perhaps something else entirely. "What are you doing with my phone?" she snapped, her voice sharp. I looked at her, the anger bubbling up inside me. I couldn't help it. I had to know. I needed to know. "You really thought you could get away with this?" I asked, my voice low but trembling with fury. "You thought I wouldn't notice? You thought I wouldn't feel it?" She leaned back, crossing her arms. Her eyes narrowed, cold and unfeeling. "What are you talking about, Dave?" she said with the most infuriating smirk. "You're being paranoid." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Her eyes flickered for a moment, and I saw a flicker of guilt pass through her, but only for a second. The way she tried to cover it up, to play it off, only made it worse. She wasn't even sorry. She didn't care. "Stop pretending," I said, my voice rising. "I know everything. I saw the messages. I saw your secret. You've been lying to me, Jennifer. For how long?" She scoffed, rolling her eyes. "Oh, please, not this again. You think you're so special, don't you? I'm not the one with the problem here. You never pay attention. You're always too busy with work. I needed someone who actually cared." My hands balled into fists. "You think I don't care about this family?" I snapped, the words hitting like a slap. "You're out there with him, and I'm here, clueless, working my ass off. And this is how you repay me?" She stood up, her voice laced with venom. "Oh, come on, Dave. Don't act like you're the saint here. Maybe I wanted someone who actually treats me like a woman, who doesn't drown me in his boring, predictable life." I couldn't believe it. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was an assault on everything I thought I knew about her, about us. She wasn't even ashamed. It was like she didn't even care. Before I could say anything more, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a text from my son, Josh. No, Dad has no idea about Mom's new lover. She even has her boyfriend bring me lunch at school. I actually like him more than my real dad. He even let me drive his supercar. I read the message and my world collapsed. My own son. He knew everything. He was on her side, and the betrayal cut deeper than anything she could say. I stood there, feeling my heart shatter. The anger was gone now, replaced with something darker. Something I couldn't shake. This wasn't just a betrayal of love. It was a betrayal of everything I had worked for. And the worst part? She didn't even care. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was done. This would be the last time she ever had control over me. The last time I let her dictate my life. My mind was made up. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. Damn it. It was time to take back control. The text from Josh kept running through my mind, over and over again. It hit me harder than the sight of Jennifer's smug face, harder than the words she threw at me. It was my son, my flesh and blood, openly siding with her and her lover. I had spent so many years protecting him, working tirelessly to give him a good life. And now this. My son, the one I thought I was raising to be a man of integrity, was now calling this man, her lover, his hero. My blood boiled. It wasn't just Jennifer who had betrayed me, it was my family. I stared at Jennifer, her eyes still cold, her arms crossed in defiance. She had the audacity to act like I was the one at fault, like I was the problem, like everything that was falling apart was somehow my fault. Do you even care about what this is doing to me? To us? I asked, my voice shaking. The anger was building inside me again, and it felt like a storm that I couldn't control. Her eyes flicked over me, that same smug expression lingering. Oh, please, Dave. You're just mad because I found someone who actually knows how to treat me. You've always been so caught up in your work. You never saw me, never really paid attention. What was I supposed to do? How about you be honest for once? I shot back, my voice rising. Stop pretending like I'm the villain here, Jennifer. You don't get to lie to me, cheat on me, and then turn around and act like it's all my fault. She sneered, her lips curling into a condescending smile. You still don't get it, do you? This has nothing to do with you. You never gave me what I needed. I wanted excitement, passion, someone who actually cared. The words stung. They weren't just accusations, they were weapons. She had twisted everything. I wasn't a perfect husband, but I had worked hard for everything we had. I had sacrificed. And now, she was justifying destroying it all. I wanted to yell, to scream, but something in me stopped. I could feel the pit in my stomach growing. This wasn't just a betrayal, it was an attack on everything I had built, on everything I thought I had with her. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. And your new boyfriend, does he give you that excitement? Does he make you feel alive? Because I bet he doesn't care about you the way I did. He's using you, Jennifer. You're just another toy to him. She laughed, a laugh that sounded almost empty. You really think you know everything, don't you? You're just mad because I've moved on. You didn't want to see the truth. I was never enough for you, Dave. And now I don't have to pretend anymore. That was it. It was like a switch flipped in my mind. All the frustration, all the pain, all the anger came rushing to the surface. But as much as I wanted to tear into her, I had to think. I couldn't let her see how much this was hurting me. I needed to make a decision. I had to be strong. I don't even know who you are anymore, I said quietly. My voice had steadied, but my heart was still racing. You're not the woman I married. The woman I loved would never do this. Jennifer's expression softened for just a moment, but then the smirk returned. And the man I married? He's the one who never noticed me, never saw me. Now I'm happy. You should have seen it coming. We've been over for a long time, Dave. Her words were like a slap in the face, but I didn't let her see how much it hurt. Instead, I stood up straighter, the anger still simmering beneath the surface. Maybe you're right, I said, my voice cold now. Maybe we've been over for a long time. But I'm done playing this game. I'm done trying to fix something that's already broken. I walked out of the room, not looking back. As I grabbed my coat and headed for the door, I couldn't help but think about everything I had lost. The life I had built, the family I had sacrificed so much for, was slipping through my fingers. But something inside me had shifted. I wasn't going to let her or anyone else dictate my life anymore. If she wanted to destroy everything, then let her. But I wasn't going to stand in the wreckage, waiting for the dust to settle. The next steps were clear. I wasn't going to just sit there and take it. I walked out of the door, knowing that everything was about to change. I didn't know where I was going when I left that night, but I knew I had to leave. I couldn't stay in that house with her any longer, not after what she had said, not after the way she looked at me. She had crossed a line, and something inside me snapped. The man I used to be, the one who took everything in stride, who believed in love and commitment, was gone. In his place was a version of me I didn't even recognize, but I knew this version was stronger, more determined. As I drove through the streets, I felt the cool night air on my face, the headlights from other cars flashing past. I should have felt lost, maybe even a little scared. But instead, I felt free. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again. The chains that had held me down for so long were suddenly broken, And now, it was time to make my move. I needed to think, to plan, but most importantly, I needed to take control of the situation. Jennifer thought she could just walk all over me, that I'd stay in the background while she destroyed everything I had worked for. Well, she was wrong. I was done being the victim. I drove to my office, the place I'd spent countless hours working at, building up my career, my future. It felt like the only place I could think straight. I parked outside and walked in, the familiar hum of fluorescent lights comforting in its quiet routine. I grabbed my phone from the desk and called my lawyer. "Mike, I need you to do something for me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, but the words felt heavier than I expected. "What's going on, Dave?" Mike's voice was calm, but I could tell he sensed something was off. "I'm done with Jennifer. It's over. I need to start the process. I'm not going to wait around while she does whatever she wants." Mike didn't say anything for a moment. I could hear him shuffling papers on his end of the line. "All right, I'll start drawing up the papers. But you need to be careful. Once you start this, there's no turning back." "I know," I replied, feeling the weight of the decision press down on me. But I didn't hesitate. "Just do it, Mike. I can't do this anymore. I won't let her get away with this." We hung up, and I stood there in the silence of the office, letting the reality of it all sink in. I was about to lose everything, my marriage, my son, the life I thought I'd built, but there was no going back now. My mind raced as I thought about the next step. I had to protect myself. I wasn't going to let Jennifer walk away from this unscathed, especially after everything she had done. The lies, the manipulation, the way she had turned my son against me, it all needed to be exposed. I walked over to my desk and pulled up the bank accounts on my computer. I had been saving for years, my son's college fund, the money we'd set aside for our future. I had always been the responsible one, making sure that everything was in place. But now, I realized I had to protect myself. I wasn't going to let her take it all without a fight. I transferred the money from our joint accounts into my personal one, closing off any chance of her taking it. I stared at the screen for a moment, my fingers hovering over the keys. This was it. The point of no return. As I hit the final button to transfer the money, a sense of calm washed over me. I was doing what needed to be done. Jennifer had made her choice, and now I was making mine. I grabbed my jacket and headed out. There was no point in sitting here any longer. I needed to take action. I couldn't let Jennifer think she was the one in control anymore. I drove back home, but this time, the house didn't feel like a home. It felt like a prison. I opened the door and walked in, feeling the weight of everything that had just happened. Jennifer was sitting in the living room, her eyes glued to her phone. She looked up when I entered, her face a mask of indifference. "So, what's the plan now?" she asked, her voice dripping with that same condescending tone. "Are you going to beg me to stay? Or are you finally going to admit that you've lost?" I didn't answer right away. I just walked past her, my footsteps heavy on the floor. She didn't even flinch. She was so sure of herself, so convinced that she was in control. But the truth was, I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to apologize. I wasn't going to fight for something that had already been destroyed. Instead, I walked into the study and sat down at my desk. Jennifer followed me, standing in the doorway. "What are you doing?" she asked, a little more edge in her voice now. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the divorce papers from my drawer. I slid them across the desk toward her. "Sign them," I said, my voice steady, but there was a quiet fury behind it. "It's over." She stared at the papers, then at me. The realization hit her, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear in her eyes. It didn't last long. She snatched the papers and started reading them, her hands shaking with anger. "You think this is how it ends?" she spat, her voice full of venom. "You think you can just walk away from everything we've built?" I leaned back in my chair, watching her, my expression cold. "No, Jennifer. You walked away from it first. I'm just making sure I don't get left with the wreckage." She didn't say anything more. Instead, she grabbed a pen and signed the papers without a word. I stood up, my heart pounding in my chest. I had done it. The divorce was happening. And with it, I was taking back control of my life. As she walked out of the room, the door closing behind her with a soft thud, I couldn't help but feel a small sense of victory. I wasn't going to let her ruin me. I was done being the victim. It was time to rise. The moment she left the room, the weight of what I had done sank in. The house was quieter than it had ever been. The usual sounds of life, the clinking of dishes, the murmur of the TV, Jennifer's laughter, were gone. All that remained was the sterile silence of what had been and the ghost of what was to come. I sat there for a long while, staring at the divorce papers on my desk. It felt surreal. In the past, I had imagined a different kind of ending, one where we worked through things, where the fights were temporary, and the love would somehow mend itself. But that was a fantasy, a story I had told myself to avoid facing the truth. The truth was, Jennifer had never loved me the way I had loved her. She had never respected me the way I had respected her. She had been playing a game, and I had been her pawn. It wasn't just the affair, it was everything. The way she had disrespected me, undermined me, and manipulated me. Every lie, every excuse, every time she pushed me aside for her own selfish desires. I leaned back in my chair and ran my hand over my face. The anger was gone now, replaced with something colder, more calculating. I had spent years walking on eggshells around her, trying to keep the peace, trying to make everything work. But now, I could see clearly. The years I had spent with Jennifer were nothing but an illusion, a distraction from the man I was meant to be. I stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the world that had once seemed so familiar, so safe. It wasn't the world that had changed, it was me. The man who had left this house tonight was no longer the man who walked in. I was something different now, something stronger, something she had never expected. But the hardest part was still to come. It wasn't the divorce. It wasn't even the fight for custody or the splitting of assets. It was the realization that I had lost my son. That message from Josh, the one where he said he preferred her lover over me, was a knife to the chest. I knew it wasn't really his fault. Kids are impressionable, and Jennifer had worked hard to turn him against me. She had been playing the role of the perfect mother, while I was the one who had always been busy working. She had made him believe that I didn't care, that I wasn't around when he needed me most. I couldn't just let that go. I couldn't let her win that battle. As the days passed, the silence in the house became unbearable. Jennifer didn't even try to talk to me anymore. She just went about her life, acting like everything was fine. But I knew better. She was terrified. Terrified of what I might do next. Terrified that I might expose everything. The divorce process was moving faster than I expected. My lawyer had already filed the papers, and Jennifer hadn't contested it. She hadn't even tried to negotiate. She was too busy focusing on herself, on her new life with her lover. And that was fine with me. I wasn't going to waste my time fighting for something that had already been destroyed. But there was something I needed to do first. Something I couldn't ignore. I had to confront Josh. I texted him, asking if he wanted to meet up. He was hesitant at first, but I pushed him. I wasn't going to let him continue thinking I was the villain in this story. He needed to understand what had really happened and why I wasn't the man he thought I was. When we met at the coffee shop, he looked uncomfortable. He wasn't the same carefree kid I used to know. There was a guarded look in his eyes, a wariness that wasn't there before. "Hey, Dad," he said, his voice unsure. I sat down across from him, my eyes never leaving his. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. Josh shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding eye contact. "About what?" "About you and me," I said, my tone harder now. "About your mother and her boyfriend. About what's really going on." He looked at me, his face betraying a mix of confusion and guilt. "I don't know what you're talking about, Dad. Mom's happy. I'm happy." "Really?" I said, leaning forward. "You're happy that your mother lied to me for years? That she's been cheating on me, using you to keep her secret? You think that's okay?" His face went pale, and for a moment, I thought he might cry. But he quickly wiped the tears away. "I didn't know, Dad. I didn't know she was lying. I didn't know what was really going on." I could feel my anger rising again, but I kept it in check. I had to make him see the truth. "Listen to me, Josh. Your mother's been manipulating you. She made you think that I didn't care. But I've been here. I've always been here. I've been working my ass off to provide for this family. And this is what I get? Your mom playing games behind my back, and you turning your back on me." His eyes dropped to the table, and I could see the guilt written all over his face. "I didn't mean it like that, Dad. I never meant to hurt you." "Then why, Josh? Why did you tell your friend that you liked her boyfriend more than me? That you wanted to drive his supercar? You didn't think that would hurt me?" He looked up, his eyes filled with regret. "I was just trying to fit in. I didn't know what else to say. It was stupid. I didn't mean it." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. This wasn't about me anymore. It was about him. It was about showing him the truth, making him realize that I wasn't the bad guy here. "Listen," I said, my voice softer now. "I'm not here to blame you. I'm just here to make sure you understand what's really going on. Your mother has been lying to both of us. She's been playing us against each other. But I'm not going to let her do that anymore. I'm going to fight for you, Josh. You're my son. and I'll always be here for you, no matter what." He nodded slowly, his eyes filled with emotion. "I'm sorry, Dad. I really am." I reached across the table and put my hand on his. "It's okay, son. Just don't let her control you like she's controlled me. You deserve better." As we parted ways, I felt a small sense of hope. Maybe there was still a chance for us, for me and my son. Maybe, just maybe, I could fix what Jennifer had broken. But first, I had to make sure that I was no longer the victim. The man I had become, strong, independent, and in control, wasn't going to let anyone take that away from him. Not Jennifer, and certainly not anyone else. This was just the beginning. The confrontation with Josh had been eye-opening. It was clear that he wasn't entirely aware of the depths of Jennifer's betrayal or how much her actions had hurt me. But there was a shift in him, a small, almost imperceptible change. It was as if a veil had been lifted, and for the first time, he was seeing his mother for who she truly was. The damage she had caused wasn't just to me, but to him as well. As the days passed, I felt myself growing more resolute. Jennifer had crossed a line, and now it was time for me to cross mine. I couldn't keep letting her control the narrative, control my life, and control our family. I had to take back what was rightfully mine, my dignity, my happiness, my future. I knew the next steps wouldn't be easy. The divorce was only the beginning, and I still had to deal with the fallout, with everything that came with it, the lawyers, the division of assets, and the constant reminders of what had once been. But there was something in me now that I had never felt before, a clarity, a sense of purpose. Jennifer had expected me to crumble, to beg her to stay, to let her walk all over me. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had learned something crucial in this process. You can't let someone define your worth. Jennifer had spent years making me feel small, making me question my value. And in the end, she had shown me the truth. I didn't need her. Not anymore. I had my own life to live. I had my own goals, my own aspirations, and I wasn't going to let her, or anyone else, hold me back. But even with all this newfound strength, there were still moments of weakness. Late at night, when the house was quiet, I would find myself lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, haunted by memories of what we had once shared. I thought about the times when Jennifer and I laughed together, when we made plans for the future, when I truly believed that we were a team. Those moments now felt distant, like a dream that had slipped away without me even noticing. It hurt. It hurt more than I cared to admit. But it was a pain I had to endure, a wound I had to let heal in order to move on. I couldn't keep clinging to the past. The past had betrayed me, just like Jennifer had. And as much as it stung, I knew it was time to let go. One afternoon, I found myself walking through the park, alone. It was a beautiful day, the sun shining brightly overhead, casting long shadows on the ground. I took a deep breath, inhaling the fresh air, and tried to clear my mind. The world seemed so simple in that moment, just the sound of birds singing, the rustle of leaves in the wind. It was a brief escape from the chaos that had become my life. I sat on a bench, watching people pass by. There were families, couples, friends. And then there was me, alone. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel sorry for myself. I didn't feel like a victim. I felt free. The phone in my pocket buzzed, pulling me back into reality. I checked the screen. It was a message from my lawyer, Mike. Got a meeting with Jennifer's lawyer tomorrow. They're ready to settle, but we need to be prepared. Bring everything you have, financial records, proof of infidelity, everything. I typed a quick response. I'll be there. We're not settling for anything less than full custody. The message felt like a step forward. A sign that I was no longer just reacting to the chaos. I was taking control. Jennifer may have thought she could walk away with everything, but I wasn't going to let that happen. She didn't deserve to win, not after everything she had done. As I walked back to my car, I couldn't help but think about the future. It was uncertain, yes, but it was mine to shape. I had the power to decide what happened next, to create a life that was no longer defined by betrayal and heartbreak. I didn't need Jennifer. I didn't need anyone to validate my worth. The more I thought about it, the more I realized how much I had been holding myself back. I had spent so many years trying to please her, trying to make her happy, and all I had gotten in return was manipulation and lies. I wasn't going to do that anymore. The next morning, I met with Mike and went over the details. We had everything lined up, proof of Jennifer's affair, the financial documents, everything. I could feel the tension in the room, the weight of what was about to happen. But I wasn't scared. I was ready. Jennifer's lawyer wasn't nearly as aggressive as I thought he would be. He seemed more interested in settling quickly, getting it all over with. But Mike and I weren't having it. We weren't backing down. I wasn't going to let Jennifer walk away without facing the consequences of her actions. As the meeting went on, I realized something. I wasn't the same man I had been a few weeks ago. I was stronger, more focused, more determined. I wasn't here to play games. I was here to fight for what was mine and for what my son deserved. When it was all over, we had reached an agreement. Jennifer would get some of the assets, but she wouldn't get the upper hand. I would have custody of Josh, and she would have to work to earn back any semblance of a relationship with him. It wasn't a victory, but it was a start. Walking out of the lawyer's office, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. The fight wasn't over, but I had taken the first step, and that was enough for now. It was time to move on. Time to build the life I deserved. Time to leave the past behind. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path. The days that followed the meeting with Jennifer's lawyer were a blur. On the outside, everything seemed to return to normal, but inside, I was changing. The man I was becoming was not the man who had been caged by a marriage that had long since withered away. I felt lighter, freer. The weight of the past, the lies, the betrayal, the manipulation was finally starting to lift, piece by piece. And while the scars would take time to heal, I knew I had started on the road to reclaiming my life. The hardest part, however, was not the legal battle or the broken marriage, it was my son. I had fought to get custody, yes, but even that felt like a hollow victory. I had to rebuild the trust between us, to repair the damage Jennifer had done in turning him against me. It wasn't going to be easy, but I was willing to try. I had to try. For him. It had been days since we'd had that conversation in the coffee shop, and I had been trying to connect with Josh. I had been careful, gentle, knowing that he was still processing everything that had happened. He still spent most of his time with Jennifer, but I was making efforts to show him that I was here, that I hadn't given up on him. One afternoon, I took him out to lunch. The conversation was awkward at first. He was still guarded, still unsure of what to say to me. But slowly, we began to talk. About everything. About how he felt, about how I felt, about what Jennifer had done. It was a difficult conversation, but it was necessary. "Dad," Josh said after a long silence, his voice shaky. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just confused. Mom, she made everything so complicated." I looked at him, searching his eyes. "I know you didn't mean it, but I need you to understand something. What she did to me, to us, was wrong. And I can't just pretend it didn't happen. But I'm not going anywhere, Josh. I'm not giving up on you." He looked away, his fingers tracing the edge of his water glass. "I know," he murmured. "I'm sorry. I just didn't know who to trust." I felt a lump form in my throat. My son was still a kid, struggling to make sense of all the chaos that had been thrust upon him. He hadn't asked for any of this. And yet, here he was, trying to figure out who was right, who was wrong. "Trust is earned, Josh," I said quietly. "I know I've made mistakes, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." He nodded slowly, his eyes beginning to soften. "I'll try, Dad. I'll try to understand." The rest of the lunch was quiet, but there was a shift in the air. Something had changed, something small but significant. We weren't completely there yet, but we were getting closer. And that meant everything to me. After that lunch, things started to improve between us. Slowly, but surely. I took every opportunity to show Josh that I wasn't angry with him, that I wasn't holding a grudge. I made sure he knew that I understood how hard this had been for him, that I wasn't going to abandon him like Jennifer had. But even as I made progress with my son, there were moments when the pain of the past would creep in. Late at night, when the house was quiet, when I was alone with my thoughts, the questions would return. Could I have done something differently? Could I have saved my marriage? Could I have been a better father? But these thoughts, as painful as they were, no longer held the power they once had. I had to remind myself that I had done everything I could. Jennifer had made her choices, and now it was time for me to make mine. I started to focus more on myself. It wasn't about revenge or making Jennifer pay for what she had done. It was about rebuilding the man I used to be, the man I had forgotten. I joined a gym, something I hadn't had time for in years. I started to eat better, to focus on my health, to take care of myself. It felt good. It felt right. But even with all this progress, there were moments when the bitterness would still rise. I would see her out with her lover, his arm around her, her smile that had once been mine, and something would stir deep within me. The anger would flare up again, hot and consuming. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the fact that she had taken everything I had given her and thrown it away. The life we had built, the trust, the love, it meant nothing to her. But I wasn't going to let that define me anymore. I wasn't going to be the angry man, the bitter ex-husband who couldn't let go of the past. I had a son who needed me, a life that still held promise, and a future that was mine to shape. And so, I kept moving forward, step by step, day by day. The healing wasn't going to be quick. It wasn't going to be easy, but it was happening. I was starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And this time, it wasn't just a flicker. It was a beacon, guiding me to a future where I was in control. I didn't need Jennifer. I didn't need anyone to define my worth. I was my own man, and it was time to start living for myself. The past was behind me. The future was waiting, and I was ready for it. The days grew longer as I continued my journey of self-discovery and healing. Each day, I felt a little more like the man I was before everything had gone wrong. But the road to recovery wasn't always smooth. There were moments when the pain of the past, of Jennifer's betrayal, crept up on me like a silent storm, threatening to undo all the progress I had made. But I refused to let it control me. I had made a vow to myself that I wouldn't let bitterness and anger dictate the course of my life. I wasn't going to let Jennifer win that way. No matter how many times I saw her with him, no matter how many times I felt that old wound reopening, I knew I had to keep moving forward. I spent more time with Josh. Slowly, the walls between us began to crumble. It wasn't easy. There were awkward silences, moments where neither of us knew what to say. But we both tried. We tried to rebuild what had been broken. I knew it was going to take time, but it was worth it. It was worth every effort, every small step we took toward healing. One night, after a long day of working and dealing with the never-ending cycle of divorce proceedings, I decided to take Josh out to dinner. It had been a while since we had done something simple, just the two of us. We sat at a small table in a quiet restaurant, the soft hum of conversation around us. It felt normal, like we were reconnecting. "So, how's school going?" I asked, trying to keep the conversation light. Josh shrugged, his eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place. "It's fine, I guess. I'm just getting through it." I nodded, sensing that there was something more on his mind. "You know you can talk to me, right?" He met my eyes then, and for a brief moment, I saw a flicker of vulnerability. "I don't know, Dad. It's just, everything's changed. It's hard to know who to trust." I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. "I get it, Josh. I really do. And I want you to know that I'm here for you. No matter what." His face softened, and I could see the tension leave his shoulders. "Thanks, Dad. I mean it." It was a small moment, but it meant everything to me. We were finding our way back to each other. Slowly, carefully. The walls weren't completely gone, but they were starting to crack. I wasn't going to lose him, not this time. But even with these small victories, I couldn't ignore the underlying tension that was always present. Jennifer's presence was still a shadow in our lives. Every time I saw her with her new boyfriend, it was like a reminder of everything I had lost. The betrayal stung, even if I tried to push it aside. One day, as I was driving home from work, I saw Jennifer's car parked in front of a cafe. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I saw her. She was sitting at a table with her lover, laughing, looking so carefree. They were close, too close. The way they touched, the way she leaned in to whisper something in his ear, it was too much. My stomach churned as I watched them. The anger flared up again, sharp and hot. It was all I could do not to storm over there and confront them. But I stopped myself. I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to let her drag me back into that toxic place. She could live her life however she wanted, but I wasn't going to let it destroy me. I wasn't going to let her dictate my feelings anymore. I took a deep breath and turned my car around, driving away. As much as it hurt, as much as the images of them together burned into my mind, I knew I was better than this. I had come too far to let her actions control me. I spent the next few hours at the gym, pushing myself harder than usual. The burn in my muscles, the sweat dripping down my face, it was a distraction, a way to channel all the anger and frustration into something productive. I needed to feel strong, physically and mentally. I needed to prove to myself that I was capable of moving on, that I wasn't going to be held hostage by my past. When I got home that evening, I decided to check in with Josh again. He was in his room, headphones on, as usual. But when I knocked and walked in, he took off the headphones and gave me a small smile. "Hey, Dad." "Hey, buddy. How's it going?" "Good. Just studying." I sat down on the edge of his bed. "Listen, I know things have been weird. I know this whole situation has been tough on you. But I want you to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Josh nodded, but I could tell he was still struggling with something. "I know, Dad. I just don't know what to think anymore." I reached out and put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to have all the answers right now. All you need to know is that I'm here for you. We'll figure this out together. He smiled at me, a small, hesitant smile. Thanks, Dad. And in that moment, I realized that things weren't perfect, but they were getting better. Slowly, painfully, but steadily. I was rebuilding my life, brick by brick. I was learning to live for myself, not for the woman who had betrayed me, not for the family that had fallen apart. I was learning to find peace within myself. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that peace was possible. Time moved slowly, but with each passing day, I found a little more of myself again. The journey was neither quick nor easy, but the quiet healing had begun. I spent more time focusing on the things that truly mattered. I was investing in myself now, something I had neglected for far too long. The gym had become more than just a place for physical exercise. It was where I cleared my head, where I let go of the anger that still simmered beneath the surface. I found strength there not just in my muscles but in my mind. Every weight I lifted, every mile I ran, felt like a small victory. It was a reminder that I could still rebuild, still grow stronger, still overcome. And there was Josh, my son, the one person I knew I had to focus on above all else. As much as I had suffered, he had suffered more, torn between two warring sides of the family. His pain had been more silent, more hidden beneath his attempts to appear normal. But he was opening up to me more now, and with each conversation, the walls between us came down a little more. We had our moments of doubt and hesitation, but the bond was still there, still strong. It was just waiting to be repaired. And I was determined to do that, to rebuild what had been broken, not just for me, but for him. One evening, after another quiet dinner together, I found myself sitting on the couch, scrolling through old pictures on my phone. There were photos of Jennifer and me, happy times, vacations, celebrations, anniversaries. In those pictures, we were so in love, so full of hope for the future. But that future had been shattered. And as much as it hurt to see those images, I knew I couldn't hold on to the past. I couldn't keep pretending that everything would be okay if I just wished it so. I had to face the reality, the hard truth that Jennifer was no longer the woman I had married. She had become someone else, someone I didn't recognize anymore. And so, I deleted the pictures. It wasn't about erasing the memories, but about letting go of the hold they still had on me. It was time to stop living in the past. It was time to live for the future. A week later, something unexpected happened. Josh and I had just finished watching a movie together, one of those old comedies we used to watch when he was younger, and we were sitting in the living room, talking. I had noticed a change in him. He was no longer distant or withdrawn. He was starting to come back to the son I once knew, the son who looked to me for guidance. Dad, I've been thinking, he said, his voice hesitant, about everything, about what happened with Mom. I turned to him, watching him carefully. What about it? I think I get it now, he said softly. I get why you're so mad, why you're upset. I didn't see it before. I thought I did, but I didn't. Mom, she messed up, and I know I shouldn't have taken her side. My heart swelled. This was progress. Real progress. Josh, you don't have to apologize for anything, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I know you were caught in the middle. You didn't ask for any of this. He looked down, his fingers playing with the edge of his shirt. I just wish I could have seen it sooner. I wish I hadn't been so stupid. You weren't stupid, son, I said firmly. You were just trying to make sense of a situation that didn't make sense. But we're getting through it, okay? We're getting through it together. He nodded, his expression softer than it had been in months. And in that moment, I realized that despite everything that had happened, despite the betrayal, the pain, the destruction, I was still here. I was still standing. And so was he. We had been through hell, but we were starting to come out the other side. The following days brought more challenges, more difficult decisions. There were moments when I wanted to fall back into old habits, to wallow in the anger and hurt that Jennifer had left behind. But I didn't. I couldn't. Every time the temptation to give in to bitterness crept in, I thought about Josh. I thought about the man I wanted to be for him, the man who would stand strong, no matter the pain, no matter the obstacles. He needed me, and I wasn't about to let him down. The divorce was finalized soon after. It was quick, as expected, with no major disputes. Jennifer had moved on with her life, and I was finally free to move on with mine. The legal battles were behind me, but the emotional ones would take time. Jennifer's new life didn't affect me as much as it once did. The idea of her with him, the man who had taken everything from me, still stung, but I didn't let it consume me. I was building my own life, and I wasn't going to let anyone, especially her, ruin that. The following weekend, I went out with a few friends for the first time in months. It was strange at first, laughing, joking, not having to worry about hiding my emotions, but it felt good. I had spent so long wrapped up in my own misery that I had forgotten how to live, how to be a person who enjoyed life again. But I was learning, slowly, but surely. There was a long road ahead, and I knew it wouldn't be easy. The scars wouldn't disappear overnight. But I had made it this far, and I was determined to keep going. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope. The future was wide open. It was mine to create, and I was finally ready to take that first step forward.